Good morning, fans, and good morning, Ian. We have a good show for you today. Me and Ian will be diving into the Veer and Shoot offense. But first, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We want to get to that 10K mark. Then we will all finally feel whole inside. And we want you to use promo code IT1 to get 2 months for $1 single. And then let's pull up the topics. What is the Veer and Shoot offense? And we are actually with the man that named the Veer and Shoot offense. A lot of people don't know that Ian literally created this name. So anytime you hear it, this was from his analysis years ago. And we want to look at Manning's ULM performance. Ian wrote a good article there. And then UNL VQB leaves program over NIL dispute. We'll just kind of talk through the state of college football. We're not going to clutch our pearls too much. We're just going to try to actually find out, what's the solution. It might be this thing that we heard about before called a contract. Who knows? All right. First things first. Hook 'em. OU Insider does not like Ian. Well, that's unfortunate. I was telling Ian he's OU's leading analyst right now. I don't know how they wouldn't like him. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Ian, if you were a CEO of a major football program, what offense would you run? And which defense would you run? That's actually a good question for you.
It would depend on what program I'm at.
You are
what's my
what's your talent level?
And what's my recruiting base? And
all right, you're at the University of Texas.
You can run almost anything in Texas.
So what would you run?
But I would run I kind of liked when they ran like the Davis offense. And by the Greg Davis offense, I don't mean what everyone thinks, which is like endless lateral throws to the sideline. I mean something very quarterback-centric, where your quarterback has a lot of decision-making and playmaking, and he can freewheel a little bit and be in command.
Is your quarterback a runner? Are you recruiting a running quarterback?
I'm just grabbing the best, Texas guy every year that has an arm and likes to improvise. I want Colt McCoy, Vince Young, Sam Ehlinger, Quinn Ewers, whoever. I just want something that can be quarterback-centric and, kind of fun and guns kind of stuff. I think that's aesthetically pleasing, and I feel like it matches the character of the state, like the Texas Ranger and the Settler and fighting the Comanche and all that. I like that kind of. I just feel like that's what
you're kind of Leachian, and you have to do the wider historical context.
It doesn't have to be as extreme as Leach, although that would be fun too. Like balance is good, being able to run the ball on too high is good. Sark's is much more it's different. It's very pro style. He's very in control of what's going on the offense. It's extremely effective. So we should all enjoy it for what it is. And It's working better than, I kind of liked Herman's style a little bit better, but this is working considerably more effectively. And I think Herman's offense wasn't the problem so much as the talent and the development and his staff management and all these other things. I think the design was great. But anyway, yeah. So
now you're at Kansas. What gimmick offense are you running?
I'm going to do something like what they're doing, like wide zone and a little bit pro style. I want something like if I'm in a school like that, I want a system that allows me to run the ball consistently every year and plug and play offensive linemen and not need insane talent. I need a system that helps my offensive linemen and tells me what kind of players I need. And I can plug in guys that I'm going to actually be able to get and maintain and develop year over year. It's like the wide zone is great for that. 'Cause it's like, I can just grab short, quick, fiery dudes that will fire off the ball and play hard and may or may not be amazing athletes and may or may not be very big. Right, they could come in at 6'2", 260 and leave at 6'2", 295. But my offense is still going to work within those parameters. And then I can play action in order to throw the ball. So I would do exactly what they're doing.
Cool. Sugar Daddy, Can I get some?
Sorry, your system has to. Let me just. I'm so sorry, Connor. Your system has to take in. It has to be something where it can work with the sorts of big people that you're going to get. Because the hardest thing in football is how to match up big on big. And so whatever you're doing has to give you a chance with your recruiting base and your NIL salary cap, right? And all those things. If you don't have something that gives you a realistic chance year over year to compete big on big, then your strategy is wrong and it's not going to work.
Yep. Can I get some OU trash talk? I have court and I can't watch live. Thank you, Sugar Daddy, for that.
It's all lawyers that we have on the.
Yeah, it's I think Ian will naturally work his way into OU trash talk, and it's not trash talk. This is Ian's true analysis. He believes everything he says. All right, UNLV story was wild. Yeah, we'll get to that towards the end of the show. That'll be interesting. All right, Ian is upper echelon analysis. Don't mess with our boy. Hook him. All right, we'll get some more of these questions here in a few, but this will actually, since we're already going straight into what offense we should run, and we will get into the second part of that, what defense later on. So a lot of people don't realize it. Ian's been at this for a long time, guys, and he's the one that created the name Veer and Shoot. And so kind of when you first start seeing this popping up at Baylor, I would assume, what's your thought process? Why you call it the Veer and Shoot? What is the early origin of you figuring out this offense and then branding it into, what its name is today?
I think I kind of made my name actually describing this offense. I wrote an article on Football Study Hall that was real big called "How the Hell Do You Stop Baylor?" Because the big thing that really put them on the map, in my opinion, people will say RG3 put them on the map. He won the Heisman Trophy. They beat Oklahoma. They beat Texas. I think that's true. But the next year they had Nick Florence as their quarterback, and he threw for like 4,000 yards, and they still won like 8 games, and they still beat a bunch of teams. And then it was Bryce Petty, and it was back-to-back Big 12 championships. And so when it was like, okay, this is a really fun offense and a really fun school that's never been good before, but RG3 was like a once-in-a-generation athlete. And then when they put Nick Florence in, it was like, this is not a once-in-a-generation athlete. This is a run-of-the-mill Baylor quarterback, and he is dealing, and he is destroying people. So it's the offense. What is it about this offense? And then I actually got to write an article for like the big SB Nation mothership with a bunch of help from like all the big guys there, like Spencer Hall was helping me edit it, and Jason Kirk and all that. And it was called The Art of Offense. And so it's just kind of basically describing how Art Briles, the nature of their offense is that he just took all of the logical assumptions of the spread offense and he took them to their natural extremes.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you want to spread the defense out so that they can't like cluster anywhere and then you can just hit them where they ain't, then you should really spread them out. Send your wide receivers, line them up next to the sideline, right? Get him as many of them out on the field. And then he was like, if the most efficient plays are short passes and deep shots, if you can get one-on-one matchups, then that's what you should do. That's what you should build your offense around, is just throwing sideline passes if they don't cover those. If they match up tight, then take a shot one-on-one to your best player, and you have so much space that you're going to get your best player one-on-one. And then when they're all backed up and they're handling all that, now you run the ball and you're a power run game. And Briles at tight end would play like just a big mobile bludgeon, just like an enormous like fullback. One time he even literally played like a 400-pound lineman as his tight end. He's like, "Why?"
So I'm pulling up your article from 2013.
Oh yeah, is this it? The Art of Offense?
Yeah, Ian Boyd, November 7th, 2013. Baylor birthed college football's most unstoppable system. Y'all check it out. Y'all can read the original.
I understood it a lot better later on. Like my book, Flyover Football, breaks it down really well. And, look at that GIF. You can see their wide splits.
Yep.
If you click on that, I bet it'll be them just chucking it deep on somebody. Oh, it's an RPO. Yeah.
They got the glance.
One time, is this the TCU game where they just like they played TCU and they were down like 50-28 or something on TCU at home in 2014, I think. And then they figured out that TCU was having trouble lining up to like one formation and one power scheme. So they ran this power scheme with the receivers running deep over and over and over again. And TCU could not figure out how to adjust it, how to respond to it without either getting beat over the top or like just crushed on power.
No.
And that was like crazy in 2014. They're running a power run with a pulling guard, and the quarterback has an option to throw a deep go ball on the exact same play.
Yeah. No, like, you can't do that. That's against the rules. What are we doing here? You got to pick one.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was
going to say, you see in the GIF here at the very top, that receiver at the top of the screen, the absurdly wide splits, right? So when we're saying wide splits, the receivers are, almost at the sidelines. That's what we're talking about whenever they took the spread offense to the absolute extreme. And you see there's this no man's land in between the receiver and the offensive line. There's nothing there. So they're isolating. Either they're going to isolate you with a light box and you have to stop the run with a light box. And then as soon as you do that, if you want to pack the box, great. Now we have these wide receivers way out there in advantageous situations. So it's an interesting way to kind of tilt the battlefield and isolate a pass defense or isolate a run defense.
So the idea of the name is that Art Briles was actually originally a Veer coach in high school football. And then he started adding the spread dimensions and the vertical passes. And he started so you got these receivers, they're way out there in space, right? And so you would just have them run vertical option routes. They were basically like run deep and basically go wherever the defender is not. So if he's lined up here, you're going here. And if he's lined up to stop you from doing that, you go over here. And so it was kind of like a run and shoot sort of deep option passing game, but then still with the downhill power game with angles like the old school Veer. And so I just made up Veer and shoot.
Yeah.
And it stuck. I think I dubbed it actually. It probably wasn't awesome for my career when because I was riding this wave of explaining Baylor's offense and why it was ascendant. And then it turned out that they were just had one of the most disgusting scandals in college football. And Art Briles was cast out to the Shadowlands, and the scheme was kind of quiet and dormant for a little while.
Yeah.
But now it's back. It's back with a vengeance.
Yeah. And so here's the relevant part. We're not just talking about Baylor, old school Baylor, which is great. But Art Briles' son-in-law is Jeff Lebby, so the head coach at Mississippi State.
You can also go ahead.
No, and he runs the Veer and shoot. So that's why we're talking about it, because we're playing a Veer and shoot offense this next week in Mississippi State. You're good, Ian.
You can pull up my Veer and shoot Substack article too. Is free. What is the Veer and shoot? And Tennessee has really helped to put it back on the map because Josh Heupel stole this scheme. And Tennessee's been doing it for the last couple of years, and really effectively. The SEC has really struggled trying to figure out how to deal with it.
I have Veer and Shoot Part 1 by Ian. And
that's it.
Okay.
You can see how Tennessee's got the you'll see in a moment, they've got the wide splits.
Trying to make me sign up.
So that's like a normal, there's the Baylor option route.
Yeah.
It's diagrammed in my book. And then if you go down, there's, I think, is that it?
Oh, it wants me to do my sign in. Let me see if I can sign in off screen real quick. But that's the Veer and shoot. That's the value of it. What graphic do you want me to pull up, Ian, so you can kind of explain it with visuals?
So pull up that one that Lebby ran against Texas last year.
Okay. Versus the too high?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here is a standard Veer and shoot formation and play. Oklahoma ran this exact play against Texas last year. And you've got like sort of a downhill, inside zone duo sort of run blocking scheme. And then you've got 2 receivers way split out in the boundary, and then 2 receivers way split out to the field. So then for that W, which is the weak side linebacker, and the star, which is the nickel, in a 2-high coverage, you have to balance 2 responsibilities. Helping the Mike play the run, you have one of the gaps up front, and then matching whatever the slot receiver does in coverage. Against a normal spread formation, you can kind of split the difference and basically do whichever one you need to do, or you can like overplay one and then force the other. Like what a lot of teams do is the will linebacker would hang back like he's going to cover the Z receiver on this example, but he's forcing the run, and then he's going to race downhill to where he knows the ball's already going. But the splits are so wide that you can't really do that. That's why you have these crazy wide splits. The outside receivers are almost like the offense is like, we're not going to use these guys, but that means you guys don't get to use your corners either. And we're going to turn your weak side linebacker and your star into cornerbacks. So they had the Z receiver just run into open space behind the weak side linebacker, and then they ran the ball downhill at the same time. And the quarterback looks at that weak side linebacker, and it's like, well, are you gonna cover all this grass where this Z receiver is just gonna settle into open space, or are you gonna stop the run? And
whatever you pick, you're wrong.
Whatever you pick, you're wrong. And Texas really had trouble, as I'm sure people can probably vaguely remember. They really had trouble tackling on these little stop routes. So Oklahoma and Dylan Gabriel hit like a bunch of stop routes where they hit for like 5 to 7 yards, which is bad enough because it was so easy. But then you miss a tackle and it's 15, 20 yards. And then they're racing to run another play. And Tavondre Sweat and your defensive linemen are like trying to get lined up again. And then they're chasing Dylan Gabriel around because the pace is so high. And it was not good for Texas. It didn't go very well.
Yeah. And so you see that W linebacker, Benda, in our system. You get put out in no man's land. I mean, you'll see it like versus Tennessee and OU. Those apex defenders, the defenders that are between the inside receiver and the tackles, they get stuck in this situation where they're kind of in the worst of both worlds. So they should theoretically choose one and shut it down. They end up getting confused and end up not choosing either a lot of the time, and they don't do any job because they're way out in the middle of nowhere. So that's the interesting part of that scheme. And then, of course, like we said, they can isolate that box really easy. If the will goes to the Z receiver, now you have you have 5 men in the box versus 5 O-line. So you have a hat for a hat. So that's what's so frustrating about this offense. And then Jacob asked, could Texas play a dime with this current personnel and shut down the veer and shoot? It's basically just tackling well in the run game by our DBs, right?
So the gambit, if you played, there's 2 ways you could play the dime, and they're both very different. You could replace that W with just another like safety, and then say, okay, he's still in a lot of space, but at least he's faster. So maybe he can like overplay the Z and still get there in time to stop the run because he's so fast, and he's faster than Benda or Blackwell, right? That's an option. It's not that great. Those guys are not always that good at racing over and finding their gap in the run game. And they may not be any faster at it than Benda because he's used to it. And it's not like Benda's slow.
Right.
So that style of dime, trying to negate it that way, is not amazing. You could do the flyover, which Oklahoma just did to Tennessee. I broke it down in my Substack, americaswargame.substack.com. And the flyover, it's not worth explaining right now because it doesn't really connect to what Texas will do, I don't think. But the flyover changes all the angles because the defense aligns completely differently. And so it's just different. So you could do that from a dime, and that might help. But changing the W for like Jalen Gilbo or something, it's like it might help a little bit, but it's not going to help that much.
How would you change the D to address that? So is the answer here one high and we're better than you?
There's two ways to do it. If you can pull up the one high diagram, if you play one high, so your free safety is back and your strong safety comes down and he just plays that Z receiver man to man, well, now you don't have all the same problems. If they run the ball, they have 5 blockers, but there's 6 defenders, and there's a defender for every gap.
Yep.
So unless they're just dominating your defensive line, there's not going to be anywhere to get cheap and easy yards, unless something that we'll get to in a minute. And then on the outside, you can take away the free gimme throws because somebody can just line up directly across from the receiver. And there's been a lot of teams like Cincinnati used to give – Josh Heupel used to run this offense at Central Florida. And whenever they would play Cincinnati, Cincinnati would give them fits because Cincinnati would just play man coverage. And their receivers were used to getting one-on-one matchups against bad defenders or just being able to run around in open space. And Cincinnati didn't let them do either. And so then all of a sudden it's like the sprinters and the fast guys that they were playing at receiver were exposed as just being really limited athletes and not actually skilled receivers that could run a lot of routes with polish, you know?
Yeah.
And those wide splits have the negative effect of reducing what routes you can actually run. So you're actually easier to cover in man-to-man coverage than you would be if you were tighter.
So this is what I wanted to say too, right? So you look at the Y on the outside and the X right by the sidelines. Well, they're not running any out-breaking routes. They literally can't. They can't. There's no outside. So as a corner, you're really just worried about them running vertical on you or doing something to go inside. So at least 1/3 of their verticality or whatever it is limited. And so what's interesting about the Veer and shoot is and this is why people say it doesn't scale to the NFL. And I don't know what Ian thinks about that, but they say it doesn't scale to the NFL.
It does not scale to the NFL.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so that's why they call it a gimmick offense or a high school offense or whatever derogatory term. But that's because your outside receivers have such a limited route tree. So that's kind of that's the interesting part about the scheme and one of the down. I mean, X or H is going inside. They have to.
Yeah. Yeah. Those things can be hard to defend because they can switch. Like Tennessee, Josh Heupel, he'll have like the H and X switch where the H will run like a wheel and the X will go inside. Yep. And then your 2 man-to-man defenders have to like trade or cross each other's paths without running into each other.
Yeah.
It's hard. It is tricky. But at a certain skill level, you can do it. So Cincinnati would do it. Georgia consistently beats Tennessee because they just play man coverage really well against this, and it works. The other solution is you can play too high. Nick Saban finally figured this out before he retired after getting embarrassed a couple years ago. You could go, if you go back to the other one where I'm in too high, what you could do is like play the weak side linebacker out on the Z, right? Mm-hmm. If you're worried about the Z receiver and that's the guy that they want to throw to, have the weak side linebacker just sit on him. Don't let him get open. Play the strong safety over the top so your weak side linebacker doesn't just get blown by. But then on the other side of the field, sneak your free safety way down closer to the box and let him play the run aggressively. And then just live in what's basically cover 0 with your cornerback and your star on X and H.
Yeah, because the problem here that's scary, right? If you put W on Z, you have 5 blockers, 5 offensive linemen. That's all good. But if the quarterback's a runner, you're outnumbered at that point. And that's why Gabriel can also kind of get you. So free safety is going to have to kind of creep down and be the quarterback guy in that situation.
When the quarterback is a really good runner and they use it a lot, then this offense really, really goes up another level and it gets really hard.
Yeah.
But I think cheating the matchups is really big. Like a lot of times in 2015, Baylor ran this offense against Oklahoma, one of the rare schematic good moments from Mike Stoops. Mike Stoops was like, they have Corey Coleman, and then they have a bunch of dudes we can cover man-to-man. So our safety is going to cheat to Corey Coleman's side half the time. And if they beat us running the ball on numbers, or they beat us throwing man-to-man with their second, third, fourth best receiver, then tip of the hat. but we don't think they can beat us if we just double Corey Coleman the whole game. And that's what they did, and they beat him.
Cool. And we're going to talk some more Veer and Shoot in 1 second, but first, a word from our sponsor.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
All right, guys, check out David McClellan. All right, quick questions that I think are good here. So the system limitations are overcome by the extreme tempo, right? I would say that's kind of the value of extreme tempo in anything. You kind of just, you're able to win by volume at that point. But what do you think? Why does the extreme tempo make up for anything, or I think it's a core feature, right?
It helps. It helps a lot. It's just one more extreme. That Art Briles really pushed tempo. Jeff Levy, who's his son-in-law, really pushes tempo. And one of the trade-offs of that is that Art Briles left his defense out to dry a ton, and his defensive coordinator was okay with it. And they're like, "Look, your defense's stats are not going to be amazing. We're going to win a lot of games like 50-30." And people are going to be like, well, this defensive coordinator actually sucks because we give up 30 points a game, but we're going to freaking win all the time. So if you're okay with that, then this is how it's going to be. And Phil Bennett was okay with it. Phil Bennett, one of the more underrated defensive coordinators of the last few decades in the Big 12. But everybody's a little hesitant to praise anyone from that Baylor staff because they scumbaggery that was going on.
I was going to say you didn't know how complicit they were in cover-ups.
Yeah.
Why not press up top? Because if X and H do a switch route and knock you off, then they're free. I mean, it's the same argument of why do you press ever?
Yeah, you can press this team. Sometimes that works really well.
Yeah, and if you have for Mississippi State, Craver's a lighter receiver. Coleman is, of course, a lighter receiver. Mosley's an average-sized receiver. So they don't have a bunch of big guys. They have faster guys. So if you miss that jam and they get around you, you're probably going to pay. But once again, if you connect, you're going to be able to probably screw off the timing of the route.
They also that's going to have limited value because they'll just dial it up for the slot receiver. And on this play, you see there's a reason that it's Z inside and Y outside. The Y was their tight end, Austin Stogner. And they just put him out there, let the cornerback cover him. We're not even going to throw to him. Now the cornerback is wasted, and we've got the Z receiver, which was I don't remember who it was, but somebody good. And they're matched up on a linebacker. They're just gonna play matchups. They're very happy throwing deep shots to slot receivers. Very, very, very happy. So even if you can press them outside at corner, can you press them with your linebacker or your nickel?
Yeah. Make sure to like the video, y'all, if you are watching, and make sure to subscribe if you are not subscribed. Really not worried about Veer and Shoot versus Mississippi State. We will dominate them. Yeah, Mississippi State's not a great team, right? And then Tennessee, I feel we have the DBs and backers to match up. How do you feel about kind of Texas versus a good Veer and Shoot currently?
Ask me in 3 weeks after we've watched them play 2 in a row.
Okay.
Tennessee is by the time Texas would play Tennessee, they're going to be a lot better than they are now. Tennessee against Oklahoma, you could really tell Nico Iamaleava is definitely a second-year quarterback. That was a little more obvious.
Right.
And their offensive line, the scheme is very friendly to offensive linemen because you don't even have to pass protect that much.
Yeah.
And you're run blocking with angles, and you're often blocking a defense that's outnumbered.
Yeah.
And so Tennessee was missing Lance Hurd, who's one of their only NFL kind of guys on the offensive line. And you could tell that the rest of those guys were not as good. They're fine, but they're not great.
What do you think the big difference is if they're still running Veer and Shoot at OU? What's
Man.
happened? Did Levy just not teach them his real, like, didn't do a good job with other coaches of teaching them the system? Like, why does the offense look so? Is it quarterback and offensive line not playing well is going to make, and all your receivers are down, is going to make a difference. But
Yes.
what's the big? Yeah, is that what it is, or is the
part of it? That's part
or
of
is
it.
the frequency of play calling off? If that makes sense.
Seth Luttrell took something that was engineered for simplicity and beauty,
Yeah,
and he tried to make it complicated. So, like, Oklahoma ran that play where Jackson Arnold threw it backwards and it counted as a fumble.
yeah,
What they drew up on that play was to run like a split zone and then have the guy way down bottom, so like the Y, only it wasn't the tight end, it was Brennan Thompson. He's going to run a slant into open space.
is this the one where he just stuck on his block?
And then he had, like, say, the H receiver in our diagram went in motion to the flat. And so they're running a split zone. And then they're like, let's not have Brennan Thompson run a slant into wide open space. Let's have him block first, like he's blocking for a bubble screen, and then run an open slant into space, which is like, why would you do that? You have all this space to work in. The whole point of the scheme is to give you space so you don't have to be complicated and you don't have to be multi-layered, and it's easy. But Seth Luttrell's like, no, this is a great idea. I do this at the air raid in North Texas. It was awesome. I got fired. He had Brennan Thompson block and then run a slant. And it's like Brennan Thompson is 5'9", 168. He's like my size. If you're asking him to block somebody, you're introducing so many layers of risk. Okay? Because he's tiny. Well, guess what else? He's also like doesn't play that much and doesn't really know what he's doing. So you could imagine like, oh, they asked him to block and then the guy just mauled him and then he couldn't get open on a slant. That could have happened. That's not even what happened. What happened is Brennan Thompson throws a block, forgets he's supposed to run a slant, and he just does nothing. And he throws a crappy block at that. So poor Jackson Arnold reads the play, sees the nickel stay home, slant is going to be wide open, pulls the ball to throw the slant. Brennan Thompson's not running a slant. Now my line is run blocking. I have a defensive edge coming right up in my face to sack me. My offensive line is not pass protecting because they're run blocking. I already used up my run option, so I can't just hand it off. Now either I got to make something happen or I got to throw. Maybe I'll try to throw that flat route. At least Brennan Thompson is sort of halfway blocking for it. But he's doing all this. He's making all these decisions in the moment. And then there's a guy in his face. And so he short arms it. And then it one hops. And then it's a fumble. And then everyone's like, Jackson Arnold is the biggest idiot that ever lived. Maybe, maybe not. That play was not his fault. That was one of the stupidest designs I've seen.
Yeah.
So naturally they fire the quarterback and the offensive coordinator is still there.
Well, the problem with like just strategy for Venables, right? If you're going to play Game of Thrones, you need to don't start firing right now. That's like, because once you go through your round of firings, Levy left, all that stuff, you're the next to get fired. So it's like, hold on to your like, well, it's the quarterback. Oh, now it's the OC. Now it's the play caller, that kind of stuff. But he's going to run out of those options. He's making those changes too fast, and he's going to run out of people to fire, and he's going to be the next one.
He's totally mismanaged the program. He's doomed.
Defense looks good, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure he'll get a great defensive coordinator job after this is over, and he'll deserve it. He can come to Texas. I'm sure he wouldn't want to. I would love to have him as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, he's an awesome defensive coordinator. He's a pressure fighter. He puts a lot of pressure. All right, cool. You want to look at Arch's play?
I guess we have to contractually.
Yeah, we said on today's show, so therefore we must discuss it. All right.
Should give him TAF. Y'all are not clicking the like and subscribe button enough, so you should be getting TAF. We're gonna give you red meat one more time, and then it's gonna be vegetables if y'all keep up this nonsense.
Share. All right, let's share the tab here. All right, let's get rid of all these ads, man. But if you go on to on3.com, watch all the ads. All right, so we'll just kind of hit the obvious downsides first. So you said this one in your article is the most prototypical first-time starter mistakes you'll ever see. So this is where he just rolls out and just says, what YOLO ball, right?
I didn't get that one. This is the more understandable interception.
Oh, is it? Okay. The other this is less obvious. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, the obvious one was the one we all saw where he's under pressure and he pump fakes and then he just kind of throws it.
And Quinn did the same thing versus ULM 2 years ago. It was almost identical concept-wise. All right, so let's watch the GIF real quick.
This one is really kind of an understandable mistake. He's just like a hair late to throw the angle route. Yeah. It's being well covered by the linebackers. And then because he knows he's a hair late and the linebacker's right there, he tries to rifle it in. But when you rifle the ball in on these underneath passes, like there's a reason that Garrett Gilbert had some struggles and Colt McCoy was so good in this offense. Colt McCoy was more on time, but Colt McCoy also threw with a little more touch and feel. You try to rifle the ball in, and all you've done is increase the downsides if it goes wrong. Yep. So it bounces off Jaden Blue's hands, goes right to the safety interception.
I also think too, though, that they're kind of learning Arch. If they'll learn that he'll throw that and he will throw it hard, I think there can be kind of an adjustment there. Because there's, in a weird way, I'm glad Arch does that because we don't have a lot of tight window throwing on the inside like that. Quinn doesn't make those plays, probably because he's safer in that regard. But also Arch's release is so quick, he can make those kind of fine throws. You watch his high school tape, he would do it all the time there too. So in a weird way, I kind of like that Arch is willing to make this play because like in the goal line and stuff, sometimes you need to throw it like that. But I agree. It does with that many people surrounded. If Blue's not expecting it, bounce off the hand. Of course, we saw the worst case scenario.
This is the stuff. This is the high level NFL stuff. This is the Tom Brady stuff where if you really get it right, you can't be defended. The veer and shoot is like, F all that. We're not even going to try to do that. You guys just go way over there. If we want to attack the middle of the field, it'll be a slant or a run or whatever.
I want to see where did he threw it fast? Where did he hit Blue high? Because it might be a ball placement issue too. Let's see.
Yeah.
See, the problem is to me, it's not the speed at which he threw. It's throwing that up. I mean, throw it at his chest. So if he drops it, it's on the ground. So it's also kind of a placement issue when you throw it up and it bounces off the hands. But if you throw it around the chest or whatever and he drops it, it doesn't have the ability to go flying up into the safeties.
Blue is also very much like, I'm about to get killed.
And Blue does not like that. Remember in the spring game where that safety? Yeah, and he did. Then the safety, the safety was about to hit him in the spring game, and Blue just completely pulled up. Blue is aware of when he's about to get smacked and does not like to get hit. And I cannot blame him. I also would not like to take that hit.
That's where you throw, like, I think Arch is thinking, like, I'm going to split this and lead Blue up the field, and then he's going to score a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes would be thinking, I'm going to throw Blue to the turf. Yeah. He's going to dive down to catch it, and it's going to look almost inaccurate, but we're going to pick up our 7 yards and be good.
That's going to protect your receiver as well, which is important because you don't want to be throwing potential hospital balls like that. So I think that was more of a ball placement issue than throwing too hard. Exactly. Ian Arch has to learn to throw. Every can't be a fastball, just like Quinn learned every throw he can't feather. That's the difference between Quinn and Arch at this point. He will learn. He will learn. All right. Arch's deep shots. What is this one? Oh, you checked with Pythagoras. That's awesome, dude.
Pythagoras said I was right.
All right. Let's see what.
Although you have to do so many square root. You have to go yards to feet.
So many conversions.
Square root it, and then back to feet or back to yards. So it's possible I made a mistake.
No, there's no chance. You've been good with your theorems. All right, what is this one? Okay, this is the Bond one or the gold? Yeah, Bond.
They're really the same. They're different plays, but they're ultimately the same. They have a dig and a post.
Okay.
And they come from different angles, but it's like, does the safety overplay the dig, throw it over his head on the post?
So it's a Yankee concept. So it's one of the most common concepts in the NFL. So if the safety, like he says, there's the cheese at the in route, here's the safety. Here's a safety. Here's the in breaker in front of him. If he bites down on that, then you throw the post over top. If he sits back on the post coming over him, then you throw the dig under. It's a Yankee concept. It's super. I think it's the most beautiful passing concept because it's just two routes. It's so simple, but it's so effective.
And it's
no, you're
like
good.
Like the veer and shoot. You're isolating guys in space. So like whatever is going on anywhere else on the field, you've turned it into a 2-on-1 somewhere else. All that. This is like basically the heart of Sark's offense. I've actually called Sark pro style Bryles a few times. The heart of Sark's offense is like, we're going to be really good at this 2-on-1 with the dig and the post on the high safety. And we're going to make sure that we can get to it, because if they play too high, we'll run the ball. And we're going to make sure that we're good at running the ball in general. There you go.
That's the Yankee concept, y'all.
So that we can use play action and buy our quarterback time to actually throw this. And my quarterbacks are going to be big guys that can stand in the pocket and throw down the field. So it's unfortunate. See, it's a Yankee concept, and this is Texas. It's the only thing. But this is Sark's off. This is like the cornerstone of Sark's offense.
Yeah, and it's nice because you can isolate that free safety in a 2 high by running it at him, but you can also do this. It translates perfectly to a 1 high free safety too. It's a remarkably effective concept for 2 routes. And one of those things, same thing, you can't be right on it. So I'd say ultimately you want to sit. If you're going to lose either way, lose on the in, But the problem is if he hits, so it's like, say you're the free safety right here, and you do take the post because it is the deeper route. You're going to get taken to the middle of the field. Well, guess what? You're going to hit that Z late on the opposite hash. And then at that point, the safety's so far taken away from the post, he can just turn up field and score. I mean, it's a beautiful concept. I've always loved the Yankee.
Quinn throws that over route as well as anyone in football at any level.
Yeah.
But the post he's solid at. Obviously, like in year 1, he could never ever hit the post.
Yeah.
He also, so like what 2 high teams will do, is just a real quick football nerd deal for you guys, is if you're a 2 high team and you're like, okay, this is awful. We're like, our safety's in conflict. What do we do? You could have the free safety take the over route so that it's not open. Mm-hmm. But then have the strong safety adjust and run like heck backwards to go stop the post. And Gary Patterson was really good at teaching that. He taught Texas how to do that really well. And Quinn threw an interception, at least one interception in the TCU game where they did that. And he throws the post, and it finally looks good. And then the strong safety comes from the other side of the field where he wasn't looking, and he picks it off.
Yeah. It's super effective, but be watching for it. And Sark will also do this thing. He has a concept that's like a thumb or something like that. So what he'll do is he'll run this Yankee a bunch, and they'll get used to that Z, that red receiver, running that deep over Dover route. What they'll do then is see where that strong safety is, where he cuts to do the over. Then he'll cheat like he's going inside, and then he'll cut back out. It looks like a thumb pointing the opposite way, and he'll arc back outside. And so he's able, that Z will end up on the right side of the field again, cutting back. And we hit JT with that a lot. But of course, you have to run this as the level 1 base concept, get the safeties used to seeing this. And then in the third quarter, you make the second layer of the play. And that's when you change that Z route to cut back, and you'll get big yards with it. So a lot of fans don't know there's like levels to the play. So like you start with this concept, get them used to it. And so then you can counter the play later in the game, and you can get a really big explosive out of it.
If whether or not Juan Davis can run that route is going to be an interesting thing this season. Because if you can run that route and you can do this from 12 personnel, then that's pretty tough.
Yeah, I think he can run it, man. Watching his high school stuff, he was absolutely bonkers. Watch this tape of him. Like, he looked like Randy Moss in the end zone when he was a young kid. All right, before we get back into it, y'all, real quick, word from our sponsor.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
We are back, and we are going to look at this play. And I actually didn't catch this in the broadcast. I caught this from you, Ian, looking at the article. So the key here is pay attention to the nickels change and leverage, okay? You can see my mouse, right, Ian?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so pay attention right here, chat, to this play right here, this nickel, this guy guarding the inside receiver. You're going to see post-snap, he's giving outside leverage, which is telling Arch that he's going to be able to throw an in-breaking route reasonably if he can beat the safety. But you'll see right before the snap, he's going to change his leverage. He goes from outside to inside, right? I want to make sure.
Yep.
Watch that that nickel change his leverage, and then that's most likely why Arch is throwing this interception or whatever. Triple coverage hits him in the hands, though. That's still what Manning can do for you.
Yeah. His read was almost right, honestly, because the safety to the receiver's side was deep and in the middle, and so when he threw it, the receiver broke across the safety's face. So you hit that, and it's probably a touchdown. And then Arch looked off the other safety. So, yeah, he gets in the frame by the time the ball gets there, but he was never going to be able to make the play because Arch looked him off. But what he didn't see was that the nickel was carrying it up, and so the nickel deflects it. Watching that live, like, you see the window that Arch is trying to hit, and you're like, oh, buddy, that was maybe a little risky. Then you rewatch it, and you're like, it was sort of risky, but he had it almost exactly right.
That's control.
He would have hit him in stride.
Well, that's the thing is, like, you have to grade technically with like a basic arm, you'd be like bad throw. Not with Arch Manning. And you can see the logic there too. If that leverage was off, I think you complete this. So it's like there's this thing too where, like, I think that's just it's gonna be thin margins, but Arch is gonna make some absolute plays for us, man. But yeah, that little switch in leverage is what makes the difference there on that nickel. Yep. Good stuff. Do we have any more? We do.
Just the RPOs.
All right, we'll watch an RPO. Everybody likes a good RPO, right?
I think they're the same concept. It's like a glance and an in. And he hits the in on the first one and the glance on the second one. What he's having to do here is it's like the veer and shoot. You got to read one or two defenders really quickly after the snap, and you have to get the ball out because your line is run blocking. So you're not protected, and if they get too far down the field, which they almost did on both examples, then you get flagged for ineligible receiver downfield.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But also, man, with Arch's lightning fast release, man, I'm really excited for him in the RPO game, man. That's going to be – I mean, he releases it so fast, man.
He's clearly good at it.
Yeah.
It was also funny that Sark didn't run those until late in the third quarter when it was like, okay, let's stop messing around. Let's score some points and get Arch out of there.
Yeah.
So, like, you watch this game and you're like, obviously Quinn is a much more finished product. Obviously Quinn is way more advanced. But if they had given Arch more RPOs in this game, then the narrative could have been different.
And Sark said that in the presser. He said that, hey, if we would have given him shorter concepts, he doesn't have that 50% completion rate. This was kind of the weird Quinn Ewers Oklahoma State treatment, where it's like throw deep to Worthy 90 times.
Yeah. I think this was Sark is always doing this where there were like one spring game he let Casey throw the ball a million times.
Yeah.
And he tried to set up Casey to look good, which didn't really work because he couldn't do it. And he'll do these things where Sark helps shape the narrative with this play calling.
Yeah.
Sark did not want to come out of this game with everybody being like, Arch is the guy and have a controversy.
Yeah.
And also he probably wants to develop Arch. So it's like, hey, Arch, we're going to give you some stuff that you're not as good at yet. We're going to throw you into some different situations. We don't want you to scramble. And you're going to learn from this game. And we're not going to let you just do easy stuff and go dominate and then have a negative.
ESPN writing articles all week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting. And Sark said it was funny. He said, me and Milwee looked at before the game. We were like, wow, man, there sure are a lot of shots here on the play sheet. And I just like the concept of these like millionaire coaches being like, we did not write down any RPOs on here, which is funny. But Stark said it straight up. He's like, that 50% completion percentage was due to my play calling. And when you're any extra yard is a less percentage chance that you make that completion. So I think it was good for Arch. I think like you said, it was a little designed. His lack of success was a little designed, but it's good. It shows people that Arch Manning's human. It's kind of like the Malik Murphy thing last year. Where fans were always kind of clamoring there. And then once they saw Kansas State, they were able to go, okay, there's reasons why we have a starter in the second string. All right, Ian, are you ready to clutch pearls about the latest NIL dispute?
I misplaced them, but I think I'll make do.
All right, you're good. Man, I told you, keep your pearls next to you, man, so they're always available.
If you've told me once, you've told me a million times.
All right, so here's the kind of the breakdown, guys, and this is developing. UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka has announced he's leaving the team because of representations that were not upheld. The Rebels are 3-0 and ranked number 23 in the coaches poll for the first time in program history. And Sluka is red shirting. This is from Pete Nakos from On3. So UNLV's quarterback is claiming that UNLV made money promises for his services. They did not render his services and pay him. Therefore, he's redshirting. He's not going to play quarterback for them anymore. Then immediately after that, so this is when the PR war starts, right? And you can also find out who everybody's sources are in 5 seconds when these kind of things break down. But anyways, Carl Reed Jr. I want to make sure I'm giving credit. 247 and CBS says that all financial commitments for UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka were completely met. This is UNLV countering. But after wins against Kansas and Houston, Sluka's family hired an agent, and they collectively feel that his market value has increased per source. Okay, so that's level 2. The quarterback says, you didn't pay me. UNLV counters and said, we did pay you. You're trying to negotiate in season and jack the price up. Now, level 3, Sluka's people, I think his dad maybe, has countered and said, that's not true. We had an agreement from February that said you were going to pay us X amount, and they have not made a single payment towards that. So I think that's where we're at now. Something could have developed in the last hour while we're talking, but it's basically Sluka said, you didn't pay me. UNLV said, yes, we did. He has outrageous demands. And then Sluka's people say, no, we don't have outrageous demands. There's money owed from February that you guys haven't paid. We don't really care about this. This is more of a proxy, so we can just talk about the problems with NIL. And so I came up with this incredible concept. I think when two parties want to make a deal, they should write terms on a piece of paper and they should sign it. And when you do that, it's crazy, but when you do that, you might be able to then not have a he said Twitter fight and just be able to point to this piece of paper and we immediately know who's lying in that situation. But kind of how are you feeling right now, Ian, with the wider world of NIL? Because immediately it gets hot. People are like, the kid's a quitter or the school's stealing labor and blah, blah, blah. But what's kind of the rational approach here in this world we're in?
Well, this is total BS. So imagine you are, I'll give 2 examples. One is the one that I think most people sympathize with, because a lot of this is like, this is player empowerment. We have to empower the players. What if you're the receiver or an offensive lineman for this team, and you're 3-0 and you're having a great year, you're like, this is great. And then your quarterback's like, peace. I'm not going to play anymore this year. So I can redshirt and then do more somewhere else. That sucks.
It does, but what's the inverse, right? We're not on a football field. We work at a warehouse. And I have my team of warehouse people, right? And I'm the shift leader, right? But they're supposed to pay me 60 grand a year. And we're halfway through the season. They haven't paid me $1. Am I letting down my warehouse workers, or is it the people that said they were going to pay that let down the team?
I don't want to absolve anyone that may have reneged on payments. They should be punished. But what you're talking about here is also kind of like a bonus. It's not like they like cancel. Remember, these guys get a free education, free board, free food.
Right.
So
there is things besides money being exchanged here. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not like they kicked him out of his dorm or like withheld him from class or something. Well, I don't know. Maybe actually, I don't know. But
Yeah.
not in a way that he would have disapproved of, I imagine.
Yeah.
So I hate that. And also, if you're a season ticket holder for UNLV, this sucks. If you're a fan,
I mean,
of
they're
UNLV,
they're ranked in the top 25, especially right now. This is important too, right? Conference negotiations are happening. They're trying to poach people out of the Mountain West. They're trying to make deals right now. This is not a good time to lose your quarterback in the middle of all this too, business-wise for UNLV.
So there are people that are reneging on contracts, and that needs to be. I mean, it's very simple. We need contracts, like you said, so that people that are promising to pay something and then reneging can be punished legally and be like, what's the term? Chased down, held liable. But this game does not work. The whole point of this game is that you and I go out on a field and Connor's like, I'm going to block and I'm going to try to block this big, scary guy and I could get hurt. And Ian's going to take the ball and he's going to run, or vice versa. And I'm believing that Ian is going to be there to get the ball and he's going to run hard and he's going to try to help us win. And he's going to risk it. And that's why I'm risking it. And when you lose that, like, I know the game has all this money and all this stuff around it, but you have to have at least a shred of that soul left, or this whole thing gets totally foobar in a hurry. And I freaking hate it, man. So we need contracts ASAP.
Well, it's going to be funny too, because we're this close from like people sitting out spring ball. You know, like the NFL, they don't show up to OTAs. You know, we're so close to that level of leverage too.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, but it's just like it's right there. You know, it's just like, who's the first one that's going to dip their toe into it, and that's kind of the tricky part. We just need contracts. I mean, it's really not. We have this weird concept where like college football is immune from all, like it's not in governed by the American legal system. Like college football is somehow above the law. It's weird. So it's just like, let's just get contracts, guys. We'll know exactly if it was UNLV's brokers or the quarterback. They'll figure it out in court kind of stuff. But it's also just so weird that the lack of foresight we have. I mean, can you not see this coming?
Some of these do have contracts too. So I'm curious what happened here.
But didn't Florida, what was it, Rashada, that were like, hey, you guys promised me this in writing and you didn't have it? Whoever that quarterback was. So there are contracts here. I just don't know what happens. And also the contracts are, I guess you can't legally stipulate, and this might just be Texas, but you can't stipulate like, hey, we're paying you to be at Texas though. Hey, we're paying you to do. So that's like the tricky part too. We got to get rid of that law where it's like, and I don't know the downstream effects. Maybe it's even worse. Maybe the schools are like, we don't want to be held liable for all the payments. But it's just so elementary that, I mean, because look, we have minor league baseball. There's 1,000 leagues, and including worldwide, to look at here. I mean, the model exists. It's weird that we're acting like college football is like it's. What would we do here in this situation? It's like, look at every other league ever.
Can I clutch my pearls for just 1 second?
Yeah, go for it.
I do hate that everyone is like, well, what would you do? And wouldn't you take money? And wouldn't you bail and get the money if it were you? And shouldn't we encourage all these people to get what they're worth and blah, blah, blah? Actually, freaking no. Actually, it matters to make a commitment to other people. And you can not grab everything you can in life for yourself at every opportunity and make that the point of your life. You can actually sacrifice for other people. So I hate that that's like a, and I know everyone's like, well, that's what the coaches are doing. And you're right. And it sucks.
Well, it's the concept, right? I mean, I get that. The world would be a better place if it was purely on commitment. We've just kind of got this weird system where it's like, you got to maximize your income. That's the point of life, Ian, is to maximize your income, and we've got it kind of backwards. And that's what's kind of tricky. So I do agree, man, like giving your word. But the insight is like, well, UNLV also gave their word that they would pay them. So if we're all about giving word, so it's like that's the tricky part is there's multiple people that did not honor their word here.
Maybe.
But
yeah, I would absolutely.
Allegedly. Yeah.
I would love to see contracts and claw back that money from the local car dealer or whoever that if they screwed a kid over,
Yeah. And for the win, Ian choosing humans over the dollars. Good choice.
I choose love.
Yeah, Ian chooses love every time. Ian got a little fired up too, guys. Did you see that? I think that's the most emotion we've seen out of Ian. That was good stuff. But I agree with you, man. This situation is very dumb that there wasn't even foresight to just like, are we really doing handshake deals, guys? Like, I mean, that's the funny part is that it's just a joke what's going on here. And so that's the funny. It's like these NIL guys, some of them are, wheel and deal guys, but a lot of these guys are just like local alums that are in business. They know better than this, so it's just like, it's that thing too. It's so weird. But
some of these kids are easy marks. If it's like a poor kid that is in over his head. And sometimes there are contracts being signed that have to be honored, but the contract like totally screws the kid because he didn't have a good agent or an agent at all, Yeah. So I'm all for justice on that side too.
Yeah, we need a transparency system here so you can't take advantage of the young players that don't know business, and you also the predatory agents that want to hold schools hostage too. We've created this system where there's too many predatory mindsets and everybody's trying to get over on everybody. And like Ian said, what the world needs now is love. All right, guys, in the chat, thank you guys for watching. Tomorrow will be Ian, Joe, and Justin at 9:30. And I will see you guys at the post game, but it'll be a lot of fun. You guys tune in at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. Chat, thank you so much. Ian, thank you so much. Later.